This video documents the process of creating Godslayers. This painting was very challenging for me, and I want to preserve the way it came to exist. In 2019, I was very interested in endgame raiding and Elder Scrolls Online, and the endgame community in general. When Sunspire, the newest trial, was released, I was closely following the trifecta progression, and I watched the first Godslayer group complete it live. Then I had the idea to make an artwork to congratulate them. At the time, I was graduating from university and I was extremely burned out from delivering my bachelor thesis. Still, I preserved screenshots of all group members of the Godslayer run and got to work. For some reason, I was hellbent on being accurate to group positioning, and this draft is basically a copy of a screenshot from the game. The only liberty I took was spacing out the characters instead of them being bunched up together. Also, the fight I wanted to depict was not even the final boss, but a side boss, which wasn't great because of the unflattering environment he's in. All of these choices started turning into problems as soon as I moved past the sketch stage. The biggest issue was the composition, because I sacrificed it to accuracy. This made me ignore the purpose of the painting. Looking at it, the dragon appears to be the main character, and all the fighters are turned away from the viewer, making them look insignificant. They are also not given enough equal space, pushing some even further into sidelines. The environment is also unattractive and doesn't provide coherent lighting. The painting progressed, and as the burnout started to set in, I lost the vision and was just filling in the details on autopilot. At some point, I realized that I'm running it into the ground. The only part I liked was the dragon and some individual details on the characters, but the entire painting was falling apart. First Godslayers has failed. Later that year, I attempted to make a new draft, but the burnout was great and the idea was buried for the next 3 years. In 2022, I finally had the resolve to see it through. Composition was crucial. I outlined several tasks for it. It has to feature all 12 members of the group, and they all have to face the viewer. They have to be equal in composition, and they have to be in motion. The painting has to feature at least one dragon, and it has to face the viewer as well. And coherence in composition and lighting was also important. All of this ruled out any realistic depiction of the battle, and I had to go decorative. All the characters will be lined up and advancing at the viewer with the dragons behind them. This structure was holding up well. I sketched basic poses for all characters and the dragon, and at first it was looking promising. I moved on to costumes, and this was a roadblock. With clothes, the characters lost motion and started looking flat. I pushed through and started shading, once again being very faithful to the source material. Everyone was wearing exactly what I had in my old screenshots. I started to get a bad feeling about the characters and moved on to other parts of the painting. I painted the background and a golden disc behind the main dragon. I also detailed the dragons and I was very happy with it. And eventually I had to go back to the characters. But I didn't want to, because Godslayers 2 started to fall apart. I found several problems, and these were: the poses were looking really bad and some were not working out at all. I also didn't have enough skill to paint clothes properly. Because of my commitment to accuracy, the colors of the characters were disjointed and distracting. The costumes did not make sense. For example, tanks were wearing evening gowns and a towel, and lighting was becoming a problem again. I needed to step back, or it will become another buried painting. The reality was that my planned idea of Godslayers is above my skill level, and I needed to do better preparation. I started gathering reference of poses, armor, drapes, environment, lighting, individual costumes that the characters were wearing, and luckily for me, pretty much everyone in the group was using pre-made costumes, so it was relatively easy to find reference for all of them. I knew now that I have to abandon accuracy and tweak the characters to actually fit the painting. Also, my anatomy at the time needed brushing up, so I did a bunch of sketches. Then, with a few references, I made few poses for the characters I was struggling with. At the time, I also rewatched Gladiator, and it solved many of my problems. For example, the overall feeling of the painting was decided, and by pixelating a few shots from the film, I got all the colors I wanted, and now I had a cohesive and restricted palette. Costumes in the film worked well for altering a few of the characters' outfits. And I got my idea for the overhead lighting. I changed some characters significantly, and I'm going to show each one in order from left to right. I made no changes for Mashi. I gave Seb a red magic ball instead of a weapon, and instead of a bow, Andy is carrying a great sword. I also completely swapped Alka's character to his more unique one that I've drawn before. The healers, Chaos and Helmi, are wearing the same but differently dyed outfit in the game, and in the painting they got flowing drapes instead. I couldn't keep PK's dress because it wasn't coherent with the rest of the painting, so it was altered along with the skin and weapon styles. Loki got clothes and a new shield and a spear. It made no sense to make Liko anything but a skeleton, so his character remained unchanged. I recolored Ron's outfit and daggers. And a very small outfit alteration and new daggers were made for Igu. And finally, Warfire kept the outfit, but all the purple color was taken out. Finally, the parts of the painting were starting to work together. I could focus on detailing each group member without major roadblocks. It was a very slow process, but this is the artwork that I really wanted to overcomplicate for the sake of it. The intricate background and floor were extremely fun to paint, as well as the weapons. My last hurdle was the lighting, but with a few drafts using the global lighting and some gradients, I was able to figure it out. The faint frame confined the painting and brought it all together. After 3 years, Godslayers is finished.